Hello everyone. Welcome back to Project Taqif. Today, we are starting our new chapter. Chapter 8, The Genesis and Environmental Context of Reform. As we embark on this detailed analysis, you must first grasp that the dawn of the 19th century was not merely a chronological change, but the birth of a modern vision among the enlightened sections of Indian society. This era of reawakening, frequently termed the Renaissance, was a complex process of self-discovery. It produced intended progress but also generated undesirable byproducts that permeate our daily existence even today. The primary catalyst was the presence of a colonial government on Indian soil. Unlike previous invaders who were absorbed by India's superior culture, the British arrived as representatives of an enlightened 18th century Europe. This Europe had been fundamentally transformed by science and a scientific outlook, presenting a sharp contrast to an India that appeared as a stagnant civilization and a decadent society. This impact served as a mirror, forcing Indians to confront the various ills plaguing their society, such as obscurantism, superstition, and an exploitative caste hierarchy. This social and ideological foundations. The social base of these movements was the emerging middle class and Western-educated intellectuals. This was an intelligentsia whose roots often lay in government service or professions like law and medicine, frequently combined with intermediate tenures in land. What gave these disparate movements an ideological unity were four intellectual pillars: rationalism, religious universalism, humanism, and secularism. Rationalism was the primary preceptor used to judge social relevance. Raja Ram Mohan Roy believed in the principle of causality, linking the whole phenomenal universe, asserting that demonstrability was the sole criterion of truth. Akshay Kumar Dutt went further, declaring that all natural and social phenomena could be understood through mechanical processes. This rationalism allowed reformers to evaluate tradition through the lens of social utility rather than blind faith. Parallel to this was humanism, a new humanitarian morality that emphasized the individual's right to interpret scriptures using human reason for human welfare. This shift moved the focus from otherworldliness to our actual daily existence. The dual streams, reformist and revivalist. You must be able to classify these movements into two distinct streams, the reformist and the revivalist. Reformist movements like the Brahmo Samaj, Prarthana Samaj and the Aligarh movement sought to modernize society by responding to new values. In contrast, revivalist movements such as the Arya Samaj and the Devobandi movement appealed to the lost purity of religion. However, the difference between them was only a matter of degree, as both relied on a combination of tradition, reason and conscience. A comprehensive timeline of legislative measures for women. The efforts of these reformers led to several landmark legislative measures that you must memorize for both prelims and mains. The abolition of sati was achieved through a frontal attack led by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He cited sacred texts to prove that no religion sanctioned the burning alive of widows. Consequently, the government under William Bentinck issued the Bengal Regulation of 1829, Regulation 17, declaring the practice illegal and punishable as culpable homicide. Originally limited to Bengal, it was extended to Madras and Bombay in 1830. Regarding female infanticide, the Bengal Regulations of 1795 and 1804 declared the practice illegal, while an 1870 Act eventually made the registration of births compulsory. The Hindu Widows Remarriage Act of 1856 was primarily the fruit of Pandit Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar's tireless work. As the principal of Sanskrit College, he used Vedic texts to prove that Hindu religion actually sanctioned widow remarriage. The act legalized these marriages and declared the children from such unions as legitimate. The struggle against child marriage was highlighted by the famous Rukmabai case of the 1880s. Rukmabai had been married in helpless infancy and refused to live with her husband upon reaching adulthood. This case brought the rights of women to the forefront forefront and eventually led to the Age of Consent Act of 1891, which forbade the marriage of girls below the age of 12. Later, the Sarda Act of 1930 pushed the marriage age to 18 for boys and 14 for girls. Post-independence legislative milestones. The reform spirit was eventually enshrined in Free India's constitution and subsequent acts. The Special Marriage Act of 1954 and the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 overhauled marriage and divorce laws. The Hindu Succession Act of 1956 and the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act addressed property and inheritance rights. The Maternity Benefits Act of 1961 and the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976 targeted economic equity. The Suppression of Immoral Traffic Act 1956-1986 and the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961-1986 were enacted to protect women from social exploitation. The Child Marriage Restraint Amendment Act of 1978 raised the ages to 21 for boys and 18 for girls. The transformation through education and women's organizations. Education was seen as the master key to emancipation. The Bethune School, founded in 1849 by J.E.D. Bethune, was the first major fruit of the movement for female education. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar was a pioneer here, being associated with no fewer than 35 girls' schools in Bengal. In Western India, Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule opened a school for girls in Pune in 1848 in the face of huge opposition from orthodox sections. Savitribai Phule became the first female school teacher of modern India. By 1910, women began leading their own movements. Sarla Devi Chaudharani convened the Bharat Stri Mahamandal, the first major Indian women's organization founded by a woman, which focused on abolishing the Purda system. In 1927, Margaret Cousins founded the All India Women's Conference, the AIWC, which was the first organization with a truly egalitarian approach to social justice and legislative reform. The crusade against caste-based exploitation. The exploitative caste hierarchy was the other great target of the 19th century reformers. Caste dictated every aspect of daily life, from dress and food to social loyalties, based on the principle of inequality by birth. Several factors worked to undermine these rigidities. The colonial administration introduced private property in land and equality before the law, which upset traditional caste equations. Social reform movements like the Arya Samaj crusaded against subcastes and upheld the right of even the lowest castes to study the scriptures. The national movement further diluted these divisions through mass participation in satyagrahas. Pioneers of the Dalit movement. Jyotiba Phule founded the Satya Shodhak Samaj in 1873, aiming for a complete social transformation and a society free of exploitation. He is credited with introducing the Marathi word Dalit to describe those outside the Varna system. Gopal Baba Valankar, a pioneer of the Dalit movement, founded the Anarya Dosh Parihar Mandali and launched the first Dalit newspaper, Vital Vidvasak. He argued that the indigenous inhabitants of India were actually the untouchable people, and that caste was an invention of invading Aryans to subjugate them. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar brought a radical edge to the struggle in the 20th century. He established the Bahishkrit Hitkarini Sabha in 1924 with the motto, Educate, Agitate and Organize. In 1927, he led the Mahad Satyagraha, where he and thousands of others drank from the Chowdar tank, a public source previously forbidden to untouchables. To symbolize a break from inequality, he famously burnt the Manusmriti. The significance and limitations of the reawakening. In its positive aspects, the reform movement contributed to the liberation of the individual from the fear of priests and scriptural monopoly. The use of vernacular languages and the simplification of rituals made worship a more personal experience. These movements provided the cultural roots the middle class needed to meet the official taunt that Indian society was decadent and inferior. However, there were negative aspects. The movements had a narrow social base, largely confined to the urban middle class. There was also a tendency to look back at the past, the Hindus to the ancient period and Muslims to the medieval, which inadvertently contributed to the rise of communal consciousness.
This arrested the evolution of a composite culture and partitioned the past into hostile camps. Conclusion: the evolution of a new society. Ultimately, it was out of this long and arduous struggle against internal decay and external hegemony that a new society evolved in India. The movement sowed the seeds of nationalism and the quest for freedom, eventually finding its fullest expression in the imperatives of equality and non-discrimination enshrined in the Constitution of Free India. If you found this strategic overview helpful, please like, subscribe, and share this journey with your fellow aspirants.
If you have any questions regarding what we have discussed today, drop a comment below.